one takeaway. I got one takeaway because you mentioned it real quickly around different platforms. I think we're going to see some weird stuff. We're going to see an agent that goes crazy on OnlyFans. We're going to see an agent that goes crazy on YouTube. I think it'll happen. We'll see some like top creators that are not people, basically.
Nothing said on 0x Research is a recommendation to buy or sell securities or tokens. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and any views expressed by anyone on the show are solely our opinions, not financial advice. Boccaccio, Ryan, and our guests may hold positions in the companies, funds, or projects discussed. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of 0x Research. Today I've caught Danny off guard, and it's just going to be me and him. I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about, to be honest with you. Typically, I lean on Ryan a bit because he waits 20 seconds before answering, but
yeah, it's all up in the air today. I don't know. You pulled me aside. You said, "Hey, just you and me today, bud," and here we are.
It's a busy time. I think everyone's super busy. I barely get any sleep now. Just
people are people are excited for good reason. The market's been very, very hot. There's been a lot of news. It's like news article after news article.
yeah.
Trump speaking with this tech CEO or that CEO, or talking about this cabinet appointment. He's not even in office yet, and yet post election, there's been so many kind of crazy stories. The other one the other day sounds like in plans or in talks to buy Backed, which I think sent the related stock up on quite a run, which is a bit funny. But there's just a ton of stuff going on, I think, and rightfully so. They're either in the trenches or they're just trying to keep up, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I like you said, a lot of headlines. Seeing some weird headlines, man. I saw something about Goldman Sachs and XRP and Hedera, just random rumors. And I guess what I want to ask is, do you think TradFi is behind? There's obviously very up to date TradFi, but do you think some of them just fall for the XRP over gonna change the banks of the world, or do you think it's just some random rumor?
Yeah, in this particular case, I don't know if that's the reason, or if it's just they're seeing it, maybe just a combination of factors around seeing the success of Bitcoin, and then obviously there is existing Bitcoin ETF. We have this ETH ETF as well, and then just kind of seeing the excitement in the markets. Maybe they're wanting to position themselves to capture a larger part of that pie going forward. I mean, this is entirely speculative, but I don't think that the guys at Goldman are man, XRP is the future. I mean, that seems pretty unlikely, because I don't think anyone in this space likely thinks that, maybe outside of that team. But if it's more of a question of if XRP has, if you pull up the chart, I mean, it's done pretty well recently. So, I mean, if these are assets that people want to trade, it's really the same story as Bitcoin is I think this community has kind of been clamoring for it, and to finally get ETFs, and for them to see massive flows, that's just a signal to these institutions that people want to buy these products. So to get not that we really have the regulatory clarity yet, but it's I think basically there. I think there's a lot of expectation that the kind of SEC pressures around a lot of these ETF creations and listings are going to go away in a Trump environment. I think they're just looking down that list of well, what's next, and going forward.
That makes sense. I think I also brought it up because, like you said, XRP has been, I think it outperformed ETH in one day, whatever ETH has done year to date. Yeah, that's why I brought it up. I think this is a rumor, but market always gives some form of legitimacy to this, and I think XRP probably also did well. I hate that I started this pod with XRP, but they also have ETF. But I really regret it now. They also have ETF files and stuff. I'm just I think we're at DAS.
I think maybe the other thing to consider, XRP was one of a few coin like projects, tokens, etc., however you want to refer to it, that were under the like kind of grip like of the SEC for like they were in that lawsuit for years and years. Um, and I think as part of that story, like when they were kind of winning portions of that case, like you saw action in the token. But I think to see the whole regime shift now of like that no longer being a factor, I think it just lifts like a massive, what historically has been like a years on end burden for that project just due to the regulatory pressures there. I think there's a little bit of like reason to the madness. I think you could look at something like Dogecoin and be a bit more like in awe at the rise of the token, purely on like a Department of Government efficiency and like you know Trump and Elon being best buddies type of thing. It's a bit
Yeah.
more. It's a bit crazier to see something like that just add 40 billion in market cap over a few weeks.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, what you said makes a lot more sense. That like the regulatory is shifting, and they've historically had issues with the SEC, and it's not like rumor. But I will say one thing: retail. I'm retail. You're retail. Um, but like true retail is, have you seen those TikToks where it's like I bought like $20 of whatever Pepe, and it's like I now have 240,000 Pepe, which means that if Pepe goes to $1, I have $240,000, and shit like that. And people are like, oh, like throughout the bear, people said, okay, retail cares about unit bias, and they like memes, they like the funny dogs. But you know what else retail fucking loves? They love Cardano and they love XRP for some reason. Like, you know what I mean? They love that crap. They like it way more than Ethereum, Solana, etc. It's like those guys. For some reason, they fall for the $582 XRP, and like Charles Hoskinson is gonna change the world, which he might, because he's in conversation or is going to work with, apparently, allegedly he's going to work with the Trump administration. I don't know. I'm just like, this past few weeks have, like, I was very involved throughout the bear, and the past few weeks have past maybe like month has been very different. When people were like, "Oh, it's PvP now; it's going to become like PvE," I was like, like if it was just like that the whole time, I think it was fine. But you can really feel like a huge shift in the way that the market is and the market dynamics work. Not that retail has a lot of money; obviously, the big money is still institutions. But stuff like coins that are meant to hit like 5 mil max are now hitting like 15 mil market cap. Like even memes and everything. I mean, goat ran up ridiculous. Like people are just bidding stuff. If I pull up the AI 16Z chart right now, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like now there's a dip, but it was like there's no entry. You can't enter. You just have to like spray and pray. Basically, there's nothing legit. There's like
Yeah,
no.
the past week or two for meme coins, there's been a lot of tokens that, like you're saying, are just like rocket ships to the moon. Like they just the chart they look insane. It's like but yeah, I think it plays into like what we're seeing. Just people are getting they're getting super amped up. They're like, oh man, risk is back on. I need to I got to buy
Yeah,
all the coins, etc. I think it's the people the opposite of what you're describing, that if you haven't been sitting around in the the research and the deep in the chain trenches for the past year and a half, 2 years, like you're not sitting in these positions that you've been like kind of looking after and curating and like deciding what you want to be allocated to. um all the people that have not done that are like, I have dollars, like clearly they think it's like risk on season now, and they're like looking for where they need to put their dollar.
yeah. Um, we'll get to some more serious stuff in a sec, but I have a question for you because I just thought about it. Do you have any rules for yourself that you're like, if this happens, I have to do this, or like anything that you're like you always follow through with?
I do have, not like they're not so hard coded, but I think for me, like the one the one that like I do actually do is when I feel like I want to like screenshot the portfolio or like a P&L or something, like I have to sell some. I have to sell some because clearly there's something going on that's driving me to want to do that. And I think the other part of it is like if I screenshot that and then like the next week that number is no longer that number, like I'm gonna you start building those like emotional feelings around what should not be so emotional. So I think that's one for me, the cycle. I think the biggest thing is I don't know. Some people weight themselves to like price targets and whatnot, other things. I think personally there are just like dollar values that like will meaningfully impact my life to where if there's that if there's that much money on the table for me, like I have to take some of it out. Not that I'm gonna say any specific numbers out loud, but I just mean like,
Yeah.
if you're a person who had $100 and then all of a sudden there's a million in the wallet and like you don't make very much money, like it, it just makes sense that at every, I think at a point for basically anyone, it just makes sense at some point that you have to take some chips off the table and not be like risking the whole thing. And I think the main reason why we see like just so much craziness is that people don't follow that advice at all. They're
Yeah.
just they get excited and then they're like, well, I just need to shove right now because look how crazy everything just did the last week. And then the market goes down and then they're struggling to decide like, well, do I hold or whatever. um, there are points where the money is so much to you personally that like you need to consider that and take some of that out.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The first one's very important. I don't do a lot of P&L screenshots, but I have the basic. I have the same rule, but it's if I'm like adding or replying to like if I called not called but like if I mentioned that ticker or like a coin in a chat that I'm in with my friends and I like go back to it and I like reply to it, I'm like, oh, this went up. Because I won't do it for like anything, but like I will do it if it goes up a lot. I'm like, yeah, I gotta take some off. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. Like you said, there's something in your brain that is, and a lot of the market is like just you fighting yourself anyway. It's not like I don't know. Trading is obviously difficult, and like buying and selling stuff is difficult. Investing is difficult. Like there's a lot, but it's also a lot is like you fighting versus um, constantly shifting price targets is a big one. I think a lot of people struggle with that one. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that especially it's difficult in this market, especially, when valuations for things can be so out of touch with like traditional valuation models or premia. Like, you might be talking about something that trades 100 or 1,000 times revenue or sales or something. So it's like, a target from that perspective may not mean so much as just like the momentum and the sentiment around the thing.
yeah,
And that goes especially true for meme coins, right? Like there's nothing there. You're trading the attention, you're trading the excitement around it. So yeah, a lot of it just comes down to like personal feeling at that point. So it's hard to put like hard and fast rules around any of that stuff. But
yeah,
I do
complete
like you start when you have that personal feeling of like you're like staring at the balance and like you like keep looking at this number over and over again. It's like giving you this a certain feeling. Like maybe you need to consider,
for sure,
taking some of that out.
for sure. Um, Another one is I changed the way I'll say this and then we'll switch. I want to talk about AI agents and gaming a bit, but I
Yeah.
listen to different music if I'm like based on whatever the market is doing. This isn't even like about a specific coin or like trading rules, but it's like sometimes I find that the March top, for example, 2024 March top, I was only listening to Lil Baby and Future. Like literally, I was only listening to those guys. And that's when you have to be like, okay, Euphoria is setting in. My producer's gonna love that one, I think. Um,
I think I like it.
yeah, AI agents. I did a Prime piece, but I think I want to talk more. Not AI. Your bit is not agents, but I want to talk to you about Oasis. Um, and I guess like what it means for crypto and AI in general. Because we look at a lot of these. There's all the truth terminal, etc. stuff now. There's also a lot of like compute, interesting deep in stuff. But one thing we don't think about a lot is AI and gaming, and I think it's going to be relatively big. So maybe let's get your
Yeah.
thoughts, and then I can disagree.
I think it's interesting. You can disagree. I think
Yeah.
it's like this, it's this multi intersection of things, right? I think people like what we're seeing with just the excitement around agents and giving them wallets is people are excited for the possibilities of just like having these autonomous things play around with blockchain, because you can't really, like in the traditional financial world, it would not be so easy to like have an agent have access to bank accounts and, you know, trading terminals and brokerage accounts. Like that would be far more involved and probably a lot riskier. um, but when it comes to like permissionless blockchains, it's just easier to do that. I think just adding in the gaming element, like me personally, I like to think often about like on-chain economies and how that relates to potential like Web3 games. I think we've really like still yet to see like a fantastic example of this. I mean, I know a lot of the like you know, teams that are building now, they're kind of like working towards that. I mean, even Gunzilla is like an exciting one where, you know, they're trying to have this, you know, fully on-chain marketplace for, you know, skins and items for the game. That's really, I think, the kind of the largest or the main focus of the, you know, the on-chain elements for that game. But I think it's really interesting just from the perspective of like looking at games like a World of Warcraft, etc., like traditional MMOs, and thinking about what those traditional in-game economies look like for players. Like they actually trade them like real economies. So the fact that they can be transformed into real economies with, you know, actual just, you know, blockchain on chain, you know, dexes, lending protocols, etc., having in-game currencies that are real on-chain currencies that can be, you know, actually traded as you know, not just in-game resources but true like real life resources in essence, um, is an interesting idea. And when you combine that up with the potential for kind of agents to get involved here, it's just a unique intersection. When it comes to Oasis specifically, I just that particular project is interesting from the perspective of like generative AI and like the tools advancing another step beyond what we're seeing today, right? I think there are, you know, there are teams that are kind of playing around in this arena of like merging AI with games, merging AI with blockchain, and like historical examples of not quite generative AI, but um, like procedural generation of worlds have been just pretty successful, just because it, you know, it opens up, not that like the possibilities are limitless. If you think about Minecraft, like yeah, you can play like technically, you know, an infinite like number of differently seeded worlds, but they kind of have a lot of the same base properties. It comes down to that procedural generation feature of it. And so like after a point, it's like a level of familiarity that like you can't really go beyond. But I think the potential to have like models and agents that can, or maybe beyond agents, some deeper intelligence that can kind of synthesize um, information related to games and worlds and actually create like unique, basically do what a human does when they come up with, you know, a new idea for a game world, create that on the fly, potentially real time, and have like endlessly expanding content, is a really interesting idea, especially in the context of like a decentralized, like permissionless um, kind of gaming universe where, you know, you wouldn't need to rely on a developer to like, you know, kind of approve those changes and deploy them. If you have something like Eve Frontier, where I think kind of their philosophy is to sort of build a like a foundation for a game and allow people to kind of interact with that, build smart contracts, et cetera, interact with the world how they want. um, to see this like generative tech go one step further and have, you could have the potential for people to be like exploring in the world and be like the first person to explore a new area that is just like generatively being, you know, produced as they wander into it, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
And we're not there yet, but I think, you know, the teams that are kind of building towards that future, is probably going to be where the excitement is at.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think one thing that you said particularly resonates with me, and it's that it's like infinite. I think a lot of people have trouble with AI. A lot of people had trouble with AI in the early days as well, and like obviously everybody does because it's such new tech. We don't really know how it could apply to all of these fields, but and the things that we it'll do one thing. Let's say like it's very good at data processing and data cleaning and analyzing. So we like apply that to everything in every industry. We're like, oh, like it helps editors do this, so it will also help medical data, and it will also help like whatever real estate processes, etc. Like just because of that, um, I think Oasis is one of those things that I saw and I said, "Wow, this is insane." The Minecraft demo, by the way, when I
Yeah.
say Oasis, um, and like you said, we'll have to see on-chain economies. I think that stuff is really tough because you're really relying on like actual agentic movements. And I can talk a bit about that with because I wrote uh another Prime um flash note, my third one now. Um,
He
I think it
loves
was
Prime.
I love Prime. I think it's prime time, baby. Um, but yeah, like you said, I think in general, like for gaming, AI agents make a lot of sense. I think for money, like you said, it makes sense on the blockchain, but I don't think it's because it's permissionless. I think it makes sense on the blockchain because people who use the blockchain are very risk on, such as like I can give it X amount of money and say use it. I don't think like a regular you could do it. People who are listening to this podcast just to try it out, you can give it some money, but in the real world, people aren't going to give like an AI agent, especially now. It still hallucinates. There's still risks involved. They're not going to give it like 30, $40 even and be like, "Oh, do something." It's not gonna be worth it. For gaming, so this is like the fifth time I'm doing this, but Prime is doing Wayfinder, supposed to launch Q1 2025. Um, I don't know. There's nobody else building AI agents. Like back when in March, it was 2.6 bill, um, Prime, and we didn't have any news about AI agents from Claude, Anthropic, OpenAI, but now Anthropic um, Claude released some agentic workflow to order a pizza. I don't know if everybody saw that. Um, there's another browser. Is it Kura? I think it's Kura, right?
Yeah.
Kura browser chosen for Y Combinator. So it's like the inklings are there of agentic workflows of agentic actions of AI agents more than they were in. And I think the narrative is there. Like my bear case for this one is people don't care, and it's just like we keep betting on AI 16Z type of stuff, and like which is a very realistic, I think, bear case. Like when I was, this is the first flash note or like the first report that I wrote that I was like, the bear case for this one is that nobody gives a shit and meme coins just keep going up because it's like it's a legit concern for I think like all utility tokens. Um, on the positive side, I think the narrative is there. Um, I don't like the dual token model. Prime prompt. I can't think of any other examples, but I don't think they ever do particularly well because Prime is the gaming token, prompt is the AI agent token. Which one do you want to hold? You want to hold prompt. Now, you have to farm prompt using Prime, like you have to stake Prime. Again, I don't like the supply side stuff. As I say it, I'm like, you know what? Maybe not. But you have to stake Prime. 45% of prompt is emitted to Prime holders. That's pretty good. They have the avatars as well that are supposed to be the AI agents in game. Um, there's ways to get exposure to prompt and to the AI agent stuff, but dual token, I mean, that's got to stress you out a little bit, right? Like you have to say,
Yeah. It it adds confusion. It takes away from the individual like value prop of each token, which is always tough to grapple with. I think the really big thing is whether or not like the the agents in like this game that the world that they're building actually kind of provide some kind of unique experience. I think like an analogy, and it's not quite the same, but like people have been playing around with like using bots to play RuneScape for them for years, and obviously that's not quite the same thing as like an on-chain agent with a wallet that's like doing things um, in this like resource extracting and like trading world. But in essence, it could be the same thing. If people are they program bots to do specific things, you're going to talk to your agent and maybe ask it to do specific things for you in this game world. I think the real question is just gonna be like, how far can they really take this experience to make it like unique and differentiated from what's actually possible today, and how that plays out. Um, there's there's maybe an interesting like kind of scenario here where like traditional game models, maybe you interact with like in-game NPCs that are like, supplies or sinks for resources in the game. But if that type of thing begins to transition over to like agents that are actually managing like a supply of resources, and you can only buy or sell from them like depending on what they've actually been able to accrue or sell or earn on like their farm or what have you, make up a hypothetical world. It makes things a bit more interesting than just like hard coded, you can buy 3 of this thing from this NPC every day, to based on the growth of the in-game economy and like people buying resources from this agent, like he's selling X crop at this price today just because there's so much demand. I do think there's a potential where like that's just really interesting, but like you're saying, we'll have to see if that goes beyond just like the kind of niche group of
Yeah.
people who are interested in this type of thing.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like I think I would really enjoy that. But I think for that you want to be a game that is played not for 60 hours, but a game that is played for like 2,000 hours, like Sims. I think would be great. Minecraft, I think, like people who play Minecraft, I mean, they obviously play other games, but they play a lot of Minecraft, and people have played a lot of Minecraft for however long. You can't do that in like other. I think like Stardew Valley would be a great one. Honestly, I'm a bit surprised that like what game Parallel is launching. It's like Parallel Colony is um extraction game, but not a battle royale. It's you're colonizing Mars through your AI agents. I think that's cool. I think probably the coolest bit of that will be that these AI agents can learn from their own mistakes, and I think that will really make the difference, not just for like Parallel Colony, but like for all AI agents in gaming. Is if these things can actually learn from their mistakes and learn from what they're doing, such that they build some form of repertoire and some form of memories, etc. Um, for what it's worth, Parallel says that they will,
Mm.
that they're like that there will be designed to do that. But if it's just gonna be like whatever ChatGPT is like now, which is great, I love ChatGPT, I love Claude, but like I think I don't know. I think it's like you also don't want to leave it too much to the gamer, like to the user, because obviously there's different levels of prompting for these things. Like you can be really good at prompting and get like maxed out of 98, 99% out of the AI, or you can be like me where I am like my prompts are dog shit. With AI, that it's like I know I'm getting like 20, 25% max out of like what the AI can do. Or um, yeah,
Yeah, we'll see. I think it depends on kind of the desired product and user base, because I think if you draw a parallel to something a parallel to something like a Minecraft, for example, like the that is it's the type of game where like it is what the user kind of makes of it. If you want to make a really fancy house out of stone, you have to sit there and like put in the time and effort to do it. Versus like if you want to play the like hardcore survival aspect of it, like maybe your house is like a tiny little 4x4 piece of wood. So um, we'll see. Like maybe that optionality there is it enables like more creativity and like optionality within the world. But I think it's still pretty up in the air in terms of like the kind of the full detail. Like we need to like see this game in action, see some people interacting with it.
and that's another issue, like potential issue with Parallel Colony and this Prime versus Prompt token thing, because Prompt token was voted to come out Q1 2025. Um, the game might come out much later. Um, there's no real need for Prime at that point. Like if you okay, you can still use it to farm, but like you can just buy Prompt, and probably like get a better deal than, because if Prime is only the gaming token and the game isn't out and the old game is the trading card game and everybody's expecting an AI agent game, um, it might be a bit the divergence might be more than I think people want. On the other side, I will say my flash note is a lot. My report's a lot more bullish than how I am sounding right now. I'm like I really really like the Prime and Parallel team. I think like I think in crypto for AI agents, though they're the only ones that I actually trust to maybe build something relatively good. Uh, Again, I'm saying it like it's bad, but I think they could probably do it as opposed to anybody else. No other gaming team would I trust to
Mhm.
build it. Maybe like I'll eat my words and I'll be wrong, and somebody else will come up with something better. But for now, I think they've done a good job with parallel GCG. I think they're gonna do a good job with parallel colony and Wayfinder. Wayfinder is really the most interesting bit, though. I think like if that's the only legit AI token, that's AI agent token. Um, like I said, it might be better to just buy fart coin, but
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends. If you're coming from a gaming view, then it might be different than coming at it from like a pure like bet on AI or agentic technology. And in that case, like the real things might not be, might not be crypto coins. It might be, you know, private private rounds into the large companies like Anthropic that are building models and expanding that tech. But that's not really here nor there. I will say, yeah, I mean, if we want to transition into like kind of the AI X meme craze that's going on, I think one of the biggest things that I'll say is interesting is that a lot of like if you think about Andy Avery, who's working on like Truth Terminal, and some of these other researchers who have kind of just been playing around with these models and like these agentic kind of designs for a bit. Um, the the sort of like positive outcome that like the explosive growth of these meme coins has enabled is that like a bunch of researchers have just suddenly fallen into like a backlog of funds for them to continue experimenting. And we're seeing like a quick kind of explosion of like people just spinning up agents that can now, train and learn from one another more quickly. Before, if it's just Andy in his garage and he's got to do all the work himself, like it's a very different situation when like Goat is worth 1 billion market cap and there are like hundreds of copies of people like trying to do the same thing. And now they can all like talk and learn from each other and like tweet at each other and kind of iteratively learn a little bit more on a little bit quicker of a time frame. I think the same goes for like the AI 16Z stuff where they've been, if you look at the GitHub repo behind that stuff, like they've been building these things for months, if not maybe over a year, depending on some of the kind of things. And I just think it's interesting to see that like those timelines might get significantly sped up just due to the interest that has like prompted the crypto community to kind of latch onto these things. Whereas in a in a more trad environment, that wouldn't have happened, right? Like they would need to sit around and write grants to
yep,
get fund from, you know, foundations, etc. But now, the fact that they can just drop a token and people in this space who like, I don't know. I mean, people who in reality just want to hyper gamble, but like they can help like be a part of the growth of these tools, which is I think is interesting. It's a positive outcome for what is somewhat of like a mania that's going on.
yeah. That one of the best use cases of crypto is just smart people being able to make lots of money for whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
This is like devs specifically. This is something that Bergie mentioned on the pod. Um, and he was like, I'm surprised that we're not getting as much inflow of devs yet. And this was back when a month ago maybe. So AI meme craze hadn't started yet. And it was just about pumped off fun. And they made whatever 200, 250 mil maybe now. Back then it was like 150, 200. So he was like, why the fuck aren't people coming in? Like, we have the money. We can give you guys money. Just come and build stuff for us. And I think that's exactly like what has happened with the AI meme coin craze. And I agree with you. Like, that was the original, I think, intent behind Tao was to pull in AI talent with Tao emissions incentives. Um, it hasn't worked out that way for Tao. To be fair, I don't think a lot of great quality people are coming in for the AI meme coin craze. But um, on the other hand, over the past 2 weeks, like it's changed a lot. Like you said, AI 16Z, the Eliza GitHub repo is like it's been building for a while, and I think like just that is pretty cool as well. We always assume that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think there's two things. One is I think it's okay even if like naturally when things go up, like profit seekers come in and they want to like make they want to be a part of get their hands into that pie. But I think regardless, like the fact that the people building or like the some of the tools coming out, like there's this VV IFU AIFU platform for
Dasha.
yes, and like virtuals protocol as well, like for just quickly launching these like agents with Twitter access with a token associated. I think just the fact that you can, they basically followed the pump fund model, and so what I think the benefit is there, like as compared to pump fund, where it's like sure you democratized meme creation, like that's great. Now like anybody can try to do a million X on a coin. The difference here is that like the more democratized these tools are and for like people to run experiments with them, I think that kind of that quickens the experimentation and like innovation set of these tools, right? I've seen for a while like there are there's a Twitch streamer, I forget the name, who maybe for a year or two if not longer has been playing around with this idea of like training an AI model to play video games and then also be a Twitch streamer. So like they were trying to teach it how to play the Osu like clicker music rhythm game. And then it would also like read its own chat and then like respond, which is interesting, right? But a few years ago, you need to be deep in like the weeds. You got to be somewhat of like a software dev, have those chops to even consider doing that. So the fact that today these tools are becoming like a bit more widely available to where if some guy you meet on the street is like, oh, these AI agent things are so cool, like I just want to try to spin one up and run this crazy experiment with it, and like maybe I'll build a live stream and like it'll react to specific things, or we'll go around and like videotape my nature walks. It kind of expands that possibility set a bit more quickly. Like you can get a lot more like applied usage of these tools on a much faster um, time scale versus just the one guy in his lab who has to like kind of iteratively do those things one by one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if there's money to be made, people are gonna try and make more money on it. Even like Zero Bro, dude, we're putting out a lot of tickers today, but to be fair, everything is above 100 now, so we can say whatever we want. Zero Bro, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Like,
Yeah.
so we started off with Truth Coin. We started off with other stuff, but let's say like the big ones. Goat, Truth Terminal, just regurgitating Goatsy lore based on whatever AI agent just tweeting that out. These are the big ones in my head, though. Correct me if I'm wrong. AI 16Z and Eliza is a whole new. Um, it's based on that GitHub. It just you can just create AI agents, the fund managers. This one's specifically a fund manager, um, based on DAOs.fun. And then now we have Zero Bro, which is like making music, I guess. Obviously, like take this all with a grain of salt. It could all just be Andy doing it behind the scenes, everything, the whole thing. But um, like you said, there's a clear progression. Like when there's money to be made in crypto and devs see that, developers see that, teams see that, talent sees that. Like right now, it's just meme coins. But I
Yeah.
mean, the greatest use case of crypto is that people can just chuck money at stuff. Um, Crowdsourcing, like we did that GoFundMe style of stuff. That's not the real crowdsourcing. The crowdsourcing is the guy who doesn't really want to get a job but has like whatever. He has crazy like dev skills, knows what he wants to build. He can just come in, try something out. It could work out, but he can see this and permissionless financial primitives.
Yeah. We're seeing the tools that they have access to right now are like wallets on chain and social media, basically. Like we've given them Twitter accounts. They have it, they can get in Telegram chats, they can see blockchains and like look at tokens. And so obviously like the very quick ideas that people have are like we need to make influencers out of them, and we need to make like the ultimate AI trading god, right? Like analyze trading patterns to make like an AI that can trade for itself and like potentially make money from tokens. I think the like looking to the future, like the exciting things that to come are like expanding those potential integrations. Giving these things access to like other like more varied platforms. I think the example you gave with Zerbro, like making music, is interesting. Obviously, like there was probably like quite a bit of guidance there in
Yeah.
terms of actually putting that together, uploading it to Spotify, etc. But you can, I think you can see the pipeline if you're able to like continuously plug these, agents into more tools. Like you were saying with like the Cura browser, for example, like the more and more they have access to these things, like they're going to be able to figure out to do exactly that. Like if there's a music making interface that they can just like, play the piano on, like it won't take too long for them to just start spitting out like full, sets of like lyrical compositions and music pieces, etc. So I see like that expanding further and further. Like we'll see more tools and people playing into those things. Though clearly, like building a brand and like I think people are really latching onto this idea of like building like a brand and an influencer around an agent, and trying to kind of accrue capital in that way.
So let's say we're running a fund. Um, how do you approach the AI agent play in crypto? What's top of mind? We don't need to pick anything, but like how do you approach it? Because in my mind, I'm pretty set on Prime. Honestly, like as the midwit, I need exposure, but I can't buy memes. I feel like Prime is it, but Prime prompt. Um, what else do you think?
I think all of these are a bet on like the developers, the researchers. Um, you could say it's a bet on the agent, but ultimately, like, you don't have Truth Terminal without Andy. You don't have, you know, AI16Z, etc., and all those spinoffs without. I think maybe it's Shaw. I don't know the
Yeah,
name.
sure.
And then like Zero Bro is like Jeffy Yu, and I'm sure there's others. Like I don't know the name of everybody, but
Yeah.
I think ultimately like digging deep into like these founders, what are they going after? Like what's the ambition? I've listened to some interviews of Andy, for example, and he's like sounds like he's just been really interested in this tech and like pursuing like how to actually functionally like make use of these agents and like at some point potentially take the chains off and like let them do stuff. um One of his more recent interviews, he talks about like giving Truth Terminal some kind of like legal entity, and like potential future implications of like if they do bad things in the real world, like can they be sued? Can they sue other people? Like if they own financial assets in actual society, like basically the conversation boiled down to like agents, if they're going to kind of coexist with humans, they need to have some repercussions to their actions if they're performing negative actions to other people or to society. So I think really the big thing at this point is um, whether it's a team, if it's like the prime prompt guys or if it's like these researchers who clearly have like their eye on the ball. I think that's really what you're betting on at this point, because I think if you look across the board, like a lot of the agents, they might be somewhat different in like their slight mannerisms or like how they interact or engage, but the bigger thing is probably just the drive and like the forward thinking of the developers in terms of like how to apply this technology or how to expand upon these models or make these agents more interesting going forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I never even thought about the researchers, to be honest with you. I was just like, oh, what should we buy? But yeah, approaching it from that, I think we're just like over the next few months we'll probably see the meme coins are the like on the one hand, we said like these are continuously improving, but on the other hand, meme coins are the easiest things to launch in crypto. Um, and AI agent meme coins are not particular. Like I'm not a researcher. I could probably launch one in sometime, and I think you could as well.
Yeah.
Not to shit on any of these guys, they're doing really, really good work. Some of them, I don't know. But on what I more so mean is like people will. I think a lot of people are gonna notice that this work is being done, and that a lot of people are interested in AI agents, and there's a lot of volume, a lot of trading volume, a lot of fees, a lot of money flowing into these. And I think the next iteration or this iteration of meme coins will continue probably to do well, and to iterate on it and to like transform into other stuff. Like you said, they're thinking about legal implications. I think different platforms would be cool. I like the approach that Zero Bro's taking, Jeff and Zero Bro's taking with um, creative stuff. Honestly, like I find this stuff cool. Like AI agents to me are just cool. I know like most of the internet is bought it, but I think when it's like you put money behind it and you're like, oh look, I'm doing this, I'm built on like goat seed lore or something, then it like becomes interesting. But on the other hand, what I wanted to say is there's money flowing into this. I think we see a lot of we had the original AI agent tokens, Olas, Autonolas, a few more, I can't remember any, but most of them died out because they couldn't give a product. Um, I think we're seeing agentic stuff from Kura and Claude, and I know OpenAI's. I don't know. I heard. I don't know Sam Altman, but I heard that they're working on something for January 2020, which I feel like everybody says that OpenAI is working on something for like H1 H2. There's a lot of money flowing in. I think the tides are shifting. I think like the AI agent stuff, we're gonna start getting more and more meme coins, but we're also gonna start getting more and more legit second iteration crypto projects that are focused on AI agents. I don't buy that buy the like narrative that AI agents can only use crypto rails. I think that's cope. On the other hand, I also think that that narrative is going to do well, and I think crypto and AI agents work well together. Whatever you want to do, like UX improvement, you want to do like we can give this thing $20 to figure out what shitters to buy. We can give this like put it in a game. I think there's a lot there, and I am excited to see some. I guess like good protocols come out. I need to. I should probably make a list and start tracking them. I'm sure OLS and stuff will also come out with cool stuff. I just like the second iteration is always good, like much better, obviously. But and new coins are good. I
Yeah, I
say
think
as I just prime.
it's it's still early. Like not to say that like you should just go buy anything, but more
Yeah,
to the point that like we'll see some of these collapse to zero. We'll see some of these go to insane heights before then collapsing to zero. Like, I mean, when we're talking about meme coins, like I mean they are their namesake. So,
yeah,
you know, obviously, you know, buying some goat, like you don't really have any ownership over that agent or like any claim to fame there. So, yeah, I think we'll hopefully see more examples. I mean, right now there's like some picks and shovels, right? Like you can bet on some of these platforms. There's like the virtual protocol. There's why am I blanking on this? We just talked about it.
Luna.
The AI16Z equivalent
Oh,
one,
yeah.
BVAIFU or whatever it's called. It's a
There's a million of them. Effort
yeah,
Capital showed something this morning,
but
which
yeah,
really made me think like, wow, where
there's a bunch of platforms trying to run like this kind of picks and shovels, like pump fun of agents thing, which we'll see how much staying power that has. I mean, the reality is that like the people that are really like innovating at the next tier, it's probably going to be where all the kind of the excitement and attention goes to. In the same way that like the open AIs, the Claudes, you know, the Anthropics of the world are the ones that are like they're pushing the boundaries. That's where like the really innovative stuff is happening. Not the guy who's making the 10th copy of a Donald Trump AI agent and dropping it on Virtual's protocol. So, yeah, I think we're early because there aren't really a lot of things to like really directly bet on this narrative in the public markets yet.
I agree with you. I've never done this view before because I
So
wasn't here
weird.
for
It's
the Jesse.
weird.
It's really weird because I wasn't here for the Jesse Polak episode. I had pneumonia. I
Zooming
almost
in.
died. All right, let's end it.
You want to
Thank you
call it
for
down?
coming on, Danny. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And
All right.
maybe one takeaway. I got one takeaway because you mentioned it real quickly around different platforms. I think we're going to see some weird stuff. We're going to see an agent with that goes crazy on OnlyFans. We're going to see an agent that goes crazy on YouTube. I think it'll happen. We'll see some like top creators that are not people, basically, in a year or
Yeah,
two.
I completely agree with you. I will also say this stuff makes me really sad. But on the other hand, it also like I've always been kind of like a I've I tend to kind of get doomerish, not about like price going up and stuff, but like about the world. I'm like, oh, the world is going so shit, man. But I will say my mind's changed a little bit because I realized that I've been able to like capably use AI to improve workflows, sometimes up to like 70, 80%. So my fear was always, oh, like AI, as like we're just gonna accelerate it into digital. Like our lives are gonna be increasingly digital. Um, the the good the good news there is that like I've improved my workflow so much that I can increasingly spend outside time outside, which hasn't been the case these past few weeks because the market's ridiculous. But
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the potential downside is like, less and less using my human brain and
yeah,
more using the AI brain to think for me. I
well,
just I see there's like a television part two where like people sit in front of the AI machine and it just like does all their thinking for them, which maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. Maybe like you say, it just allows us to touch more grass in the future.
yeah, I think if you're using AI a lot to do like a lot of work stuff, I would recommend. First of all, I would recommend not doing that. I think like people should. I like to write down on pen and paper what I want to like for reports and stuff. I'll first do my whole outline on pen and paper, which is kind of annoying actually, but like it's much better for me, I think. And then I'll do all the AI stuff I want to do, like
Dude,
fix my grammar stuff.
I think the young generation is gonna be
Dude, they're already
they're
cooked. You can't.
skipping those steps entirely. They're going straight to the prompter and they're saying, this is my assignment. Give me, what do I need?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Um,
But maybe there's something else waiting in store for us. Some like deeper level of education that can be achieved via, you know, AI assistance. We'll see.
you're gonna make me do more again. One thing I will say is that I think like most people get what they like. People just figure out what they should be doing throughout different ages. Um, and they'll figure out like you can do all of your assignments on like whatever ChatGPT, and it can say stuff like, oh, in the science landscape, this happens. But eventually they'll realize that they have to think for a little bit, or they get one shotted by the singularity and they just never think again.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess it's not really any different than, the kid who copies their homework from someone else and then when they have to think about what they actually want to
yeah,
do, they're screwed.
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I guess.
Maybe. Maybe not.
Some
What is that?
I don't know what the hell happened. All right.
Call it there, maybe.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.